One is what made you take that choice, and the other was that how has it really changed your way of life, or rather your perception about yourself, about the world around you?
Very good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to be here, lovely to meet Dimple. To answer the question, I was born a non-vegetarian. I have Bengali and Irish parents, so very much a non-vegetarian culture. And I was exposed for the first time. You may find it very strange, but sometimes a non-vegetarian child doesn't really realize that there is a vegetarian world out there. And so for the first time I was exposed to a vegetarian lifestyle in Kalakshetra, Chennai, when I went to study there. And I remember coming home and asking my mother, why did you feed me animals when I could have, lived without eating them? And so I turned vegetarian when I was about 11 years old, and that continued. But I think at every decade your body changes, and I started finding that when I was 30, something changed. When I was 40, something changed. And then now, of course, it's much faster. But at some point, I found that I was getting sick a lot. And we weren't able to find the reason behind it. And one very reputed, and those days they didn't know about lactose intolerance. A very reputed doctor told me, these animals you're working with, they're all making you sick. And I said, Doc, if there is a God, if there is a universal being, that can't be true. We'll figure this out. And then I met Dr. Nandita Shah. And she's doing these workshops for the last 30, 40 years, peas versus pills, where she introduces you to the vegan plant-based lifestyle. And I attended that workshop and I thought, how wonderful, let me just try this. And I tried it for a week and all my symptoms cleared up. And that's how I figured out I was severely lactose intolerant. And it was the first month of turning plant-based was very difficult because your body is so used to your perugu, your curd, which is like, the staple for a vegetarian. And my brain was telling me things like, what's the point of living, if you can't eat curd also. And fortunately for me, I'm a meditator, so I could watch these thoughts and I was saying, oh, I see. That's a good one, try another one. And it lasted about a month. And literally it was like the 30th day, 29th or 30th day, I woke up in the morning and the mind was silent. So I got through that de-addiction phase and I stayed vegan ever since. It's been 18 years. Yeah. What was the change? I stopped falling sick. Yeah. I stopped falling sick. So now if a cold or a flu, it lasts 3-4 days. That's it.
Very beautiful, but ma'am, and might we all say that you're aging backwards? Moving on to Dimple. So Dimple, I know you also have been following a plant-based Ayurvedic diet for many, many years now. So I want to know that how does this plant-based diet really alter one's vibrations or the frequency or the state of being? Does a plant-based or Ayurvedic-based diet completely transform you in and out?
So I was born a vegetarian, so there was not much, for me to decide and transform, and for you to have that transformation at the age of 11 shows how spiritually deep you were at a young age. So we didn't have to, jump too many obstacles and hurdles to get where we are. We were born in a vegetarian Jain family. But about 10 years ago, I was aggressively into CrossFit. Not even 10, maybe 7 years ago. I was aggressively into CrossFit. I would work out for an hour in the gym, pick up like 60 kgs, and compete with the boys and beat them up at their games, and then go back home and eat a lot of paneer. Because I was told, eat protein. And I was my very best, size 0, whatever. The tiniest clothes would fit and everything. But my skin was flaring up, and it didn't make sense. So that was my second attempt at trying to be a vegan. I said, okay, let's try and give up the kulfi ice cream and the lassis. That was my temptations. Literally, I could just live off ice creams for lunch, and that's what I did when I was in Switzerland. I would order ice cream for lunch, and my friends would laugh at me. So it was like, okay, the temptation I need to give up is ice creams. I can replace it with a sorbet. Okay? Or, those stick ice creams we used to have as a child. It was literally just water and some fruit pulp in it, right? I was like, oh, that's great. We can have ice golas. So I just had to find a replacement. So I'm not 100% vegan yet. I'm 90% there. I do have ghee in my diet, which I'm trying to phase out and replace it with cashew butter, which has good butyric acid, which I found out. Because I was trying to find what is the closest replacement to ghee. The reason why we have ghee in Ayurvedic diet is it basically pulls heavy metals and toxins out of your body. So we call it Ayurvedic vegan diet, but we don't touch dairy products, but we make an exception to the ghee. But there's a great replacement for it now. Cashew butter is probably the best boon to vegans. I tell every vegan that I meet, have at least 10 cashews in your diet every day. It has magnesium in it, it has good fat, it has butyric acid, which helps in, populating the good bacteria in your small gut. What it most importantly does is lightens you as a human being, because we are nothing but energy. We're nothing but earth, water, fire, air, and space. When we were born in the purest form of these 5 elements. And I say this, when we die in the most diseased state. So what went wrong? You disintegrate back into those 5 elements. You can't take anything with you. Your body disintegrates into earth, earth to earth, water to water, dust to dust, right? What happened in between? We stopped listening to our intuitive voice, to our soul, which is forever. We stopped listening to those epiphanies and those energetic vibes and answers that were coming to us, which comes when you're meditating, right? So energy-wise, when you speak of the diet, we have Tamasic, Rajasic, and Sattvic. I'm saying these Ayurvedic colloquial terms, you've all heard those words. Tamasic diet is predominantly meat-based, meat, seafood, eggs, and even dairy, dahi is considered Tamasic, because it is one of the heaviest foods to digest as per Ayurveda. And if you have skin diseases like psoriasis, eczema, rosacea, urticaria, the first thing you must take out of your diet is fermented foods and dahi. It triggers it even more. Lots of people don't realize that. So Tamasic diet basically creates inertia, dullness, because it takes 72 hours to get digested. Right? That's reason number 1. Reason number 2, meat, seafood, eggs are acidic in nature. Plant-based diet is alkaline in nature, and cancer cannot exist in an alkaline environment. And I got barred from TEDx for saying that. One of my speeches was pulled down because I said that. But that's the truth, which we cannot run away from for too long. Number 3, animal-based diet. For every 50 grams of animal-based protein you have, you're losing 40 milligrams of calcium through your urine. Whereas plant-based diet gives you 7 to 8 times more calcium. It doesn't take anything from you. So sesame, sesame seeds, tilka laddu is very popular in most cities, right? We have like a festival dedicated to eating sesame laddu during January, Gudi Padwa and all of that. 100 grams of sesame seeds has 7.8 times more calcium than 100 ml of milk, cow's milk. Cow's milk instead pulls calcium out of your bones, as proven by Harvard. They did a study on 78,000 women over several years, 10 plus years. And they tracked them and they found that women who drank 1 to 2 glasses of milk per day had higher incidence of hip fracture compared to women who never drank milk. Because even milk, just like animal-based protein, has say 48% animal calcium and 52% animal-based protein. And animal-based protein is called a dirty fuel, which requires calcium to burn. So there's 4% less calcium. It pulls it from your stomach, and if your stomach doesn't have enough calcium, your body pulls it from your bones and sends it. So 1, it pulls calcium out of your body. 2, it's acidic. 3, it takes 72 hours to get digested, 3 days in your system. 4, it is inflammatory in nature. And number 5 is the most powerful reason. Animals get cancer, plants don't get cancer. That's the simplest answer I give to anyone who comes to my clinic and says, I'm sick, this is my health issues. I was like, 5 reasons why plant-based diet. It's alkaline, it doesn't pull calcium out of your body, plants don't get cancer, blood pressure, diabetes, thyroid, it gives you more calcium, it reduces your inflammation with every bite you eat. It's medicinal. So if you get Tamasic out of the picture and eat 80% Sattvic and 10-20% Rajasic, pickles are also Tamasic. So you can have a little bit of tamas in your diet in the form of pickles, good bacteria. Rajasic is all your spices, cinnamon, cardamom, clove, grated ginger, pepper, star anise, saffron, which gives you Rajasic qualities. So if you can switch to this, you'll notice your energy has become very light. And you start elevating like all these monks and sages. They live on a diet of khichdi. And you see them literally being light. That's our ultimate goal. To become so physically light that you don't feel your body anymore. When we're diseased, we feel our body. This is hurting, that is aching, this is swollen, that is inflamed. You have to reach that stage where you don't feel your body, you feel your soul instead. And I think Amala ma'am can speak the best about that because of her Vipassana experiences. I would let Amala ma'am talk about it.
So well put. Just one more question I had regarding, the diet, and I'm sure many people must be asking you. So, what kind of protein should we eat? With no curd and completely vegetarian. I'm sure many people must be saying then, how do we suffice our protein intake? Because that's like the talk, like you have to have enough protein in your diet. So I'm sure you must be getting asked this a lot.
That's the first question they ask. When I say, can you switch to a plant-based diet for 3 months? Where will I get my protein from? I said, are you into bodybuilding? They're like, no. I said, if you're not a bodybuilder, you don't need that much protein. Let me give you a simple, logical answer. A lot of people will debate it, but try to understand what is protein. It's a building block. It's a biological building block. And up to the age of 18, you're building bones, muscles, tissues, teeth, nails, hair. So you need a lot of protein. Pregnant women need a lot of protein because they're creating a baby inside of them, okay? Senior citizens need some amount of protein, but it's constipating. So we say moderation. After the age of 18, if you eat too much protein, okay, if it's not measured well, like it should be equal part protein, carbs, and vegetables. But a lot of people have started doing 60, 70, 80% of the diet protein-based and no carbs. You know what will happen? You'll start growing horizontally. Have you seen Salman Khan before and Salman Khan now?
After.
Have you seen women also who have a lot of protein? I started looking thick when I was doing CrossFit. Although I was size 0. But I could feel that thickness, like my thighs were looking like a bodybuilder woman, and I was like, okay, this is not what I was signing up for. You don't need so much protein. Let me tell you how much protein you need. A Kapha body type, endomorph, needs half plate vegetables, quarter plate carbs, quarter plate protein. A Pitta body type needs 33% protein, 33% carbs, 33% vegetables. She knows this in and out, one of my students. And a Vata body type needs half plate carbs, lots of fat, and quarter plate vegetables, quarter plate protein. Your protein should not be more than 33% of your daily intake, number 1. Number 2, 300 varieties of beans, lentils, legumes, pulses in India alone. Even if you have one type of dal today, you don't have to repeat it for a whole year. That's how blessed our country is. 300 varieties of beans, lentils, pulses, legumes. How many varieties do we have at home? Barely 5. Moong dal, tur dal, chane ki dal, masoor ki dal, black dal, rajma, channa, chole, hummus, nuts, seeds. Broccoli also has protein. Your vegetables and fruits also have protein. Protein gives it a physical shape. Without it, it will be like liquid. Everything has protein. It's a misconception that the chicken industry and the dairy industry has created in our mind that you need to eat those foods to consume protein. So who's feeding that information to you? The profit-making industries. So you don't have to buy all the advertising jargon that you hear. Go back to your basics. Your moong dal khichdi is probably the best meal, and that's what I had for lunch with you.
Yes, what a wonderful insight. So Amala ma'am extensively works in animal welfare, and she has been saving countless lives, creating an environment of such kindness and compassion. Ma'am, I wanted to know what really triggered you to actually take up this cause? Like, would you say it is your ikigai, your passion, you work towards?
It's a combination of things. A great information and such a beautiful speaker. It's lovely to hear Dimple in person. I have a few questions from what you were saying, but I'll come back to that. I think helping animals is a combination of things. One is, as a child, when I rescued my first injured animal, I am so grateful. My dear mother didn't say, "Dirty dog, don't bring it in," you know. She just rolled her eyes, let me bring it in. She helped me clean it up and look after it. And when it died, she let me cry on her shoulder. So I think when you have an environment that doesn't deter you from expressing your nature, then the nature manifests. When I moved to Kalakshetra, again Rukmini Devi, the founder of Kalakshetra and the director at the time, she was the chairperson of the Animal Welfare Board, and she never missed a moment she got with us to talk about animal welfare and saying that compassion was such an important thing, and these creatures had so much suffering in the world. They needed all the kindness that we could show them. And when I moved to Hyderabad, after marrying Nagarjuna, I moved to Hyderabad. I saw so much suffering on the roads. I started rescuing them just as a instant response. And before I knew it, that's how Blue Cross started. Yeah. And it was Nagarjuna's idea actually, who told me, you know, you're doing this for yourself, which is very nice, but you should put this in as a system for the city. It's obvious that the city needs this. So he encouraged me and he donated my first vehicle, and yeah, that's how it started, 1992.
Oh, beautiful. We need more compassionate people who are fighting for this cause, rescuing animals. And I think parents play a very important role in molding you and, you know, being a very important part of their lives. Dimple, you know, Ayurveda describes a deep, or rather Ayurveda explains a deep respect for all living beings and how it is interconnected as a web of life, web of living. So how do you, or rather how would you inspire your readers, your students to sort of make these morally compassionate choices in their everyday life?
One is what's on your plate. Okay, make sure what's on your plate is living food from Mother Earth that she abundantly gives us. There are sun foods, earth foods. You must have heard of this word. Sun foods are basically foods that grow 1 foot above the ground. So you have your sponge gourd, bitter gourd, French beans, string beans, peas, zucchinis, cucumbers. These are called sun foods. They capture a lot of sun's energy. And literally, human beings can survive on just sunlight like plants. We don't even need food technically. We need to get to that level of upliftment. So if you start eating a lot of sun foods, you're improving your urja, your energy in life, right? So be cautious about what's on your plate. You know, there's this book that really did impact me, was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. You know, Robin Sharma obviously had a huge impact back then on me as well. And he said, don't put anything dead on your plate, which is dead animals. It's Tamasic. Because the minute the animal dies, it starts rotting. It starts decaying. Okay? It has complex diseases, cancer, blood pressure, diabetes, thyroid. Unlike us, they don't have spas and hospitals that they can check in at, right? And they release cortisol when they're separated from their kith and kin. And they're releasing, you know, such stress hormones. They injected with growth bovine hormones, the cows especially, injected with antibiotics, artificially inseminated and forced to give birth every year. You know, the calf is becoming a belt and a shoe and a bag, and the mother's crying, releasing all that cortisol, the hormones, the estrogen, the antibiotics, pus and blood into that milk. And we drink that and we wonder why we're getting sick. An unhealthy, unhappy cow is not going to give you healthy milk. That's number one. Okay? Cows, for me, for some reason, I don't know if it's a soul animal, you know, I just feel the need to reach out to them, protect them through my grandfather or in whatever way. You know, we have like these cow rescue farms. So number one, be careful about what's on your plate. Number two is a spiritual answer which I recently heard from my Jain gurus and monks in the last 2 months of the Chaturmas that I managed to attend. And he said, Ahamkar, that is your ego, Ahamkar comes from I, me, myself. But the minute you dissolve the difference between you and others, you and those animals, birds and plants, and you say, ye humse alag nahi hai. We are them and they are us. That is the day you'll reach your highest spiritual health. And when you reach your spiritual health, your mental, emotional, physical health follows. We are constantly fixing our body, hoping that our body will support our spiritual pursuits. It's the other way around. When you're spiritually healthy, you will not have diseases in your body. And if you do have diseases, it's your karmic imbalances showing up. You just go through it with a smile on your face, saying that, I must have done something in my previous births to deserve this, and release it. And the suffering also goes with it. You don't feel the pain anymore because you feel the joy in releasing that karmic imbalance. That's Ayurvedic perspective. And Jainism perspective is live and let live. That's probably the most powerful, beautiful truth that Lord Mahavir left for us.
Very beautifully put. Amala ma'am, so we know, I know you have done extensively practice Vipassana and you do it on a regular basis. So Vipassana is like a silence meditation program. It's a 10-day program where you have to sit in complete silence. So ma'am, it's like a two-part question. One is, what did you learn in those 10 days? Like the Amala ma'am who went before Vipassana and Amala ma'am after Vipassana. And for someone like who hasn't practiced Vipassana or hasn't started into meditation or following silence, what would be the initial steps that we can take so that we can make it a part of our daily lives, our daily routine?
The way I found Vipassana is an interesting story, if I may share that.
Yes, please.
I was a year into starting Blue Cross and doing animal welfare work, and I was overwhelmed with the suffering that I saw. I was way over my head, and I realized that nothing I do is actually going to change anything, and nobody can do anything alone. I was 6-8 months pregnant at the time with my son Akhil, and I felt that, okay, this is not the way I can do animal welfare, and this is not the way I can lead the organization. So I took a step back and I said, I have to find a way out of this. And along the way, I opened the newspaper one morning, and in the supplement, in the days we used to read the newspaper, the supplement had a smiling face, and it said, "The way out of suffering, the teachings of the Buddha." And it was about the talks of Goenkaji, Satyanarayana Goenkaji, the world teacher of Vipassana, and he was going to give talks at Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. So off I went. I thought, this is God sent. When they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I said, this is it. I'm going to find the way out of suffering. Off I went and I attended the talks. And during the talks, one of the questions from the audience to Goenkaji was, when is the best time to start Vipassana? And he said, in your mother's womb. The best time to start is in the mother's womb. So I said, okay, this is another sign. So off I went, packed my bags, went for the retreat. I would say, like so many, the first session I wanted to run away. And then one very kind sadhak, they have volunteers, all the Dhamma Sevaks are there. One Dhamma Sevak came and said, no, it was same for me also. Just watch your breath, it's okay, you'll get over it. And sure enough, next session I went, I was fine. It was probably the most difficult thing I'd ever done. But I was determined. This time I was doing it as a mother, and I was doing it to find the way out of suffering, and I was like, really, and of course I thought my bones were going to break, and I thought I was going to go mad, and I was basically, in the silence you deal with your own demons, So, and every time I opened my eyes, everybody was sitting like a Buddha, and in the evening there was a discourse. Every evening of the 10 days there's a discourse, and there's Goenkaji's videos. And he's so jovially telling, he also went through the same thing, he also thought he was... and he takes you, they take you day to day, so gently and so jovially, and so together you go through this whole thing. And at the end of it, there was just so much peace, and they teach you Maitri. On the last day, it's just Maitri, and where you're just sharing your peace with with all of creation. I went back many times. I went back 22 times.
Oh 22 times.
It's my sign to go now.
I did many seva also. Every third course, the commitment is, if somebody is serving you, then you must also serve. So every third course I served, and I kept on going, thinking I will figure this out. And I think till the demons disappeared, and one of the biggest demons I had was anger. I have Irish and Bengali genes. You have the IRA and the Naxals, and you tell me. And so anger was like a fire in my blood. And poor Nagarjuna, he's and he would say, "You want to go again? Okay." And because he knows I'll come back so peaceful. But jokes apart, the best, I think the biggest change I found was, I think by the third or fourth course retreat that I went, and I came, and I would seriously meditate at home as well, was that when I triggered for anger, suddenly I would feel hot on my face, but there was no anger thought. It was just heat. And I would say, "Oh, anger." And nothing harsh or abusive would come out. And I would be able to explain it, very clearly. And I found that started having a much better result than getting angry. And I think that's when I became more effective as a human being, more effective as a leader, more effective as a professional. When you can explain things without the emotional impact it has, and you don't demoralize another human being in your communication. I think that was the biggest shift which happened to me. And I carry that as a very precious tool. It's in my toolkit. Nibbana is way maybe some life in the future. But anger is, that demon has gone,
It's like a magic pill now.
If I can just add, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm watching Amala ma'am talk, and I can see my future self. Hopefully, this would be my future self. Because if there's one demon inside of me, it's anger. And my childhood friend would vouch for it, Like, I just can't tolerate lies, dishonesty, and patriarchy and unfairness to anybody, especially women, of course, because I've witnessed it firsthand. How our mothers and grandmothers and sisters have been treated. And I used to wonder, I was like, why is nobody saying something about it? And of course, the Jain gurus, said something very powerful. They said, it's your karma. You were born a woman. You chose to be born a woman. And I was like, okay. And that liberation is powerful, but I just hope I achieve what you've achieved in some manner, release of that anger. that demon that burns us from inside.
Wow. Well, I get indignated too. I mean, I will definitely speak up, but you can, when you're able to speak up devoid of the anger that's burning you. I can speak very forcefully, and I know my son has said that I have Bharatanatyam eyes when I speak. As a kid, he used to say, Amma's Bharatanatyam eyes will start. So I do speak forcefully, but the force comes from, I think there's a universal force which comes through, but it's not driven by my anger. Yeah. So there's a qualitative difference, and then suddenly you see that everybody's listening and everybody's with the program. So yeah.
That's lovely, right? They say like a woman is 64 forms of Devi, goddess, and she has 64 facets. Like she can be the stentorian of the family, she can be the nourisher, the provider, the protector, the guide, the coach, the teacher, the healer, the sister, the mother, the daughter, like the many forms and roles that a woman plays. And now that when you say Bharatanatyam, that image comes in my head of you, expressing yourself through your physical form and through your eyes and through your expressions. You're also expressing a lot of your emotions onto that platform. We have so much to learn from you, ma'am. Like, we have a lot. I must tell everyone, I know I'm overstepping Prashali's role here. Yesterday when I heard ma'am's voice, so I was like, okay, ma'am's going to call, 4:30, 4:31, 4:35. And then I hear her voice. There are pauses, meaningful pauses in her sentence. What are those pauses? It's in those pauses that you actually hear the meaning of the word that you heard prior. And that pause which you hold in your sentences, in your voice, in your words, is basically creating space for us to participate in that conversation. Like, you're creating space for us to come into that conversation. And that, I told myself yesterday, you have a lot to learn from Amala ma'am. How to speak slowly, softly, purposefully, meaningfully, impactfully, and in the most sweetest manner deliver your message without that anger within.
Thank you, that's really sweet of you.
But ma'am, it's incredible 22 times. Like, I've done it once, so I know how hard it is. So you doing it 22 times is like, okay, I need to start doing it again, practicing it more.
I'm a hard nut to crack.
Okay.
I'm sure, Sir has two careers. One is acting and one is trying to crack this. I don't know if he's ever figured it out, but it's I think a good lifetime challenge that keeps you motivated and on your feet.
True. So I've heard, Dimple, you often speak about how meditation, prayer, all of this is directly related, or rather it complements your gut health. So I want to know somewhere that how does prayer, meditation, silence, how does it help to bridge that gap between your emotional release or emotional detoxification and your personal or physical well-being? So how does it work? Like, how does meditation, prayer directly affect your gut?
There's so many layers to that question. I'm so glad you asked that. In Jainism, again, there's this one chapter called Athara Papasthan. It means 18 negative emotions. Athara Papasthan, Pranitipat, Mrishavat, Atadan, Maitun, Krodh, Man, Maya, Lobh, Rag, Dvesh, Kala, Abhyakhan, Paishunya, Parparivad, Ratyarati, Maya, Mrishavat, Mithya Darshan Shalya. These are the Hindi Prakritic words. It basically means the 18 negative emotions that we hold within us. Krodh, anger that we spoke about. Moh, attachment. Maya, illusion, the delusion of life. That this is your reality. This is not your reality. Your soul is your reality, and your body is like a dress that you're going to wear for 90 years. Just like how we change clothes every day. Do we remember the clothes we wore during our childhood? Maybe one or two outfits because of the photographs. We don't remember. We have been born thousands and millions of times. So we keep changing our physical form, our body. But our soul is forever. When we hold negative emotions, we're literally driving nails into our soul. And then that soul has to carry that forward into the next janam and next janam. When we release our negative emotions, we release the spiritual pressure and also the physical weight that it brings. Okay, something as simple as what Buddha said. I could visualize Buddha saying while ma'am was talking. Buddha said, when you're angry, it's like holding hot coal in your hand, hoping to throw it at that person you're angry at. Like, my brother and I used to probably like fight the most when we were kids, finding ways to hurt each other with a pillow or God knows what not. You're holding it, hoping to hurt the other person, but you can't because that person is gone. The person is not in your vicinity. He's not in your geographic region or topographic region anymore, right? It's in your mind, that person. And when you hold that hot coal, you're actually burning yourself. So that's what the negative emotions do. They burn you from inside. For someone who has battled anger issues, to the point that I could not put on weight, and now I connect it. Because my mom used to keep saying, "Wo kha ke koi fayda nahi, sab kuch jal gaya andar," every time you get angry. And now it makes sense. I was so underweight, so marasmic. I looked malnourished despite the best efforts of my parents. It's because I used to get so angry over little things that food used to just burn up. I used to not get any nutrition. And your liver is the seat of anger. And your liver is the largest detoxifying organ of your body, as per Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic science, right? And modern science also, liver is the largest detoxifying organ. But if you store a lot of anger there, your liver gets inflamed and cannot do the job of detoxification. If detoxification is not done, the new nutrition that you're eating is also getting mixed with the waste inside, leading to more inflammation. They're rotting, putrefying, releasing gases. You're bloated, you're having indigestion, burping, acidity, reflux. That's also due to anger. And then you start having other issues like incomplete evacuation of waste, and then you wonder where the diseases are coming from. Ayurveda says all diseases begin in the mind. It was not a physical manifestation. Even a mosquito bite, malaria, or dengue, typhoid, it began in the mind. I was like, how? You have so much ego that you think you're indestructible. You're just walking around without paying attention to those minute creatures around you. And then you walk over a puddle and here and there, you just stand wherever you feel like, and the mosquitoes bite you and you don't care, you don't pay attention to those little creatures around you, and then you end up contracting those diseases also. It begins with ego, inability to see those minute things around you. And when your gut is sick with all the negative emotions, because this is where we store our emotions, when you feel angry, scared, excited, happy, nervous, butterflies fluttering, you feel it in the stomach. So when there's so much trapped negative emotions, it affects your digestion, and when your digestion gets affected, your gut, which is a second brain, is not able to participate in your thinking process. Your intuition comes from here. So your intuition is shut down because of negative emotions and indigestion. And now you're not making good decisions. You're hungry, you're just gulping down a tub of ice cream. You're angry at someone, you're eating French fries. You had a breakup, you're eating a lot of fat. So you start using food as a substitute for your emotions and for love. Then you start making worse decisions, which will then lead to diseases. So it begins with emotions, it begins with what's in your mind, and that translates into gut health issues and diseases.
So beautifully put. So before this conversation, I might add now, so I was very nervous actually meeting Amala ma'am for the first time and moderating this conversation. But I have to say, when I met her, such calming, peaceful energy that automatically I was calm. Like there was not even like a inch of thinking that, oh, how will I do this? That energy you had around me. And I think my next question comes from that you're like so spiritual, so philosophically grounded. So how do you balance this compassion and resilience when you are in activism?
Good question. Somewhere my role changed. I had an acting career. And I have played 58 different roles.
Oh.
Yeah. And somewhere along the line, when people asked me when I was not acting, do you miss acting? And I would answer that you don't really stop playing a role. So in life we have different roles. I've played 58 different roles in the movies. And if I am playing a role in a movie and I come home and I continue to play the role, my family is thinking, you've gone mad, right? And in life also we have different roles, and if we carry one role to the other, they'll say, no, you're losing it or what? Right? So everything is truly a role. And at some point you have to know when to detach from the role and return to self. Right? And that self, who is that self? You discover during meditation. So you understand the self during meditation, or any introspective, deeper moment that you spend, you begin to understand who self is, or what self is, or who you are. And you begin to define that. And every role that you play, you step back. So if that answers your question, everything we do is after all a role. The more you get attached to the role, the more miserable you are. And the more detached you get, you can step back to self and be at peace again.
Right. I think we all have a message in what ma'am said. And I think we need to start practicing
These
that.
are ageless teachings. You go to any scripture, these are the ageless teachings.
Ma'am, they are like
It's just
such knowledgeable bites. I think we need to keep listening to them again and again and again. And from someone who really practices them in their everyday life. So I think we have a message in this for all of us. Moving on to Dimple. Dimple, I know that you rituals form a very important part of your life, and you follow Jainism in every aspect. And I've personally seen that, like a lot of our choices are emerging from that. So, so when I was studying and I read about Jainism, and it talks about ahimsa, non-violence, and aparigraha, which is non-possessiveness. So I want to know, how do these values, or rather how did all these values sort of help in your own personal healing, and how does it reflect in your writing? How has it molded your writing?
It's interesting. Imagine you're on a ship and the captain says the ship is about to drown. You need to jump off. Like the ship is about to sink. What are you going to do? Are you going to collect your favorite furniture, lamp, carpets, rugs, and then jump into the sea? You can't. You'll drown, right? What would you do? You'd probably look after your family and make sure that, okay, you are going to jump into the water, you know how to swim, sort it. We're all going to jump into the water. Are you going to jump into the water with thoughts like, oh my God, I have a bank loan to pay. Oh my God, I need to punch my neighbor. He was so mean to me. Are you going to jump into the water with those thoughts? You're going to drown again, because you're going to end up gulping a lot of water, and that chaos, that emotional conflict, you'll just end up killing yourself. So people don't drown in the ocean. People end up drinking way too much of the sea water. The water gets in and they drown. And Guruji said something very powerful, I think yesterday or day before. You see a ship sailing in the ocean. The ship is like this tiny and the ocean is massive. The ocean can drown the ship any moment. But why does the ship not sink? Because the water in the ocean hasn't gotten into the ship. As long as the water doesn't get in, the ship will sail. The same with the human body. As long as you don't let your external variables and tangibles own you and possess you, you're fine. So Bhagavad Gita also says, it's not that I don't own these things. It's not that I don't own this dress or this human body. It's just that I don't let these own me. So if tomorrow it was lost, it wouldn't affect me, even for a second. Like literally just a month ago, I reached Chennai airport and I gave my driver the suitcase and the bag. And it was piled over each other. He took the bag, put it in the car, and we reached home. And I said, where's the suitcase? He's like, what suitcase? And I said, Nisi. There's an old laptop and a hairdryer. My sister-in-law will give me a new hairdryer and I'll get a new laptop. Over, done. And I went back and started talking to my sister. And I told him, go back to the airport and figure it out now. And he found it. And I told my mother, if it's mine, it'll come back to me. If it's not mine, it's gone. And I was just thinking, what was the password and how many files do I have to restore? Okay, all sorted. It's on my email. Done. It was literally a 60-second calculation. But the same thing had it happened to me 10 years ago. My mom knows that I wouldn't lose even a safety pin. I would worry and fret about it. Where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? And now I've come to that sense of maturity, and I hope it only grows. We don't own anything. Not even this body. I can't even take this body with me if I go to heaven or hell, or wherever we go, hopefully moksha. Then who am I to possess things? That has probably been the most liberating truth. For the longest time I was fighting, I need a perfect home, I need a perfect car and a perfect office and everything. And the day I stopped fighting for it, during COVID, I got bestowed like how? My uncle one day decided to gift me a car. And I was like, oh, it never occurred to me I need a car. Next day, my dad's like, okay, we're buying you a house. And my brother goes to Bombay, and instead of a 2 BHK, he books a massive 3 BHK because he thinks his sister needs space, especially for the wardrobe, right? And suddenly, yeah, that's true, huh? There's no space for anyone to bring clothes into the house. So if I ever get married, the man has to keep his clothes in another house. And then suddenly my mother's gifting me all this family heirloom and jewelry, and I'm like, the day I detached from things is suddenly the day where universe is like, thundering and showering on me. It was like a thunderstorm upon me. And I'm like, universe, are you trying to make fun of me now? The day I said I don't want anything is the day you're giving me everything. And it just showed up in my life, And I was like, wow. Now when we have that financial stability and security, my question or the thought that comes to my mind is based on what my granddad said and taught. The greatest service is service to humanity, and that's the rent you pay to live on this planet. So when you become more well endowed, don't raise your standard of living, raise your standard of giving. That itself will cure you. Like if you don't have good health, go and gift health to those who are in the hospital unable to pay their bills. If you don't have good sleep, gift good sleep to others by gifting blankets and mattresses to those who don't have one. Gift others what you don't have. You're basically creating the energy which the universe will bring it back to you. It's a boomerang. You're the co-creator of this universe. So you're Shiva, you're Parvati, you're Lord Ganesha. You are everything that the universe is made of. That truth has liberated me. And I just hope, we keep growing and evolving from there.
Very profound thought she's put across.
Beautiful.
So my final question for the day is, we live like in a digital world where we are addicted. Like, I have a phone right now with me. I think that's the level of addiction that we have. We sleep with our phones, wake up with our phones, everywhere, we have access to internet. So in such times, how do we move more inwards? How do we try to, get into that mode of silence where we can do a lot of self-introspection, a lot of self-understanding, understanding where we are as a being. And my part 2 of the question was that how do we ensure, or what spiritual wisdom that we have, how do we combine that with a modern science to sort of redefine what we mean by living consciously? It's open to both of you.
I was going to say, well, use your phone and download the Vipassana app, but and so you can meditate twice a day or whenever you need to. The phone is a tool. It's a very useful tool, and it's a multi tool. And as she said, if you let the tool own you, there's misery. But when you own the tool and you use the tool, you find a balance. Right. I think for any real inner work, you need to take a retreat. And if I hadn't gone for all those retreats, maybe I wouldn't be in a place of authority to say that. I would say, no, I can do 1 hour. Even today, I do 1 hour meditation, morning, evening. And that 1 hour is just surface level. When you go for a 10-day retreat, a 15-day retreat, it takes you 3 days, the first 3 days at any Vipassana course, you're just doing Anapan, which is breath awareness. You're just sitting there silently, watching your breath, the natural breath, which is very subtle. It's not pranayam. It's very, very subtle. And so the mind gets quieter, 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 quieter. And the focus gets sharper, 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 sharper. And at the end of 3 days, that's when you actually start experiencing what is inside. And that's when you start doing Vipassana. But it takes that much time to go to any inner depth. And then you work with the technique that Buddha taught. You work with Vipassana and you kind of follow that path for 10 days, 15 days, whatever you have chosen to go for. And that's when you do that serious inner work. You can't do it in a hectic day that's full of distractions. Every 5 minutes, your mind is pulled in a different direction. You're playing different multiple roles, you're multitasking. It's impossible to do that kind of work. And that's what retreats are very, very good for. But I would also caution that at the end of a retreat, you're coming back to the role you're playing.
Everyday life.
It's your choice, right? You have a responsibility, you have parents, you have children, you have a family, you have your profession, you have... So whatever you're doing is to really give you the inner peace and balance and wisdom to come back so that you can serve in the roles that you have chosen in this world. Of course, it's different if you've chosen Vairagya and you're going into the life of a monk or a nun. That's a different path. But many people come back from a retreat and think they're in some superior zone. And that's a very dangerous place to be. That's where, unfortunately, the world is then being torn apart, because then you become religious and you say, if you're on that side of the fence, you're evil. If you eat meat, you're evil. If you do this, you're evil. And that is like madness. That's the spiritual madness which I dread. And I know it exists multifold. And any inner work will tell you that is not the reason why you go within. Not to feel superior, but to come back and do a better job of what you were failing at from before. Yeah, so I'm very wary when people say they're very religious or they're very spiritual. And I think, oh God, they're so superior that I have to go in the opposite direction. Any inner work doesn't make us superior, it just makes us more efficient to do the things that, we set out to do.
I think ma'am has given the essence of it all.
Yeah, and also makes us more understanding for people who make mistakes. Like there is a lot of religious superiority which comes out of misguided, misinterpreted gems of truth that are out there. And the strength of numbers, the strength of whatever. I think it's a lot of use and abuse of a very beautiful culture that we have, which is so diverse and so secular and has, when we were growing up in school, we had like the 7 great religions of the world. And we said 7 different kinds of prayers. And we respected them. And it's just important to say that there's no superior race, there's no superior religion. We're all here to find peace and to do a good job of what, we've set out to do.
Very well said, ma'am. I think we all are going to take some very nice wisdom words from you, going back and trying to follow them as much as we can in our daily lives. Dimple, if you would like to...
I love that you took off the burden from us, that you don't have to behave in a certain manner to feel spiritual, right? Because I have been debating for the last 2 months, like Diksha is such a beautiful process. When will I get, Vairagya? When will I take Diksha? And I kept thinking of it. But I also know, like you said now, we have some duties also to complete. And until those duties are done, we cannot leave. And also that thing that don't enter that space of spiritual ego. This can happen to many of us. When I learned Ayurveda, I was like, oh my God, this is the best science in the world. And then I was like, wait, but allopathy did save my father's life. So who am I to give this a ranking or a grading or a rating, right? Every science has a role to play. Sometimes it happens to even the best of the yogis, The spiritual ego makes them very difficult to bend. So don't hold anyone in judgment. That was a beautiful way of saying it, don't hold anyone in judgment for what they choose to eat, what they choose to wear, how they choose to live. If we didn't judge, I think the world would be a far more peaceful, happier place. It's because we're constantly projecting our judgment, our anger, our hate, our insecurities, our childhood trauma, our belief system. That's the worst, projecting our belief system onto others. This is the best one and you need to follow. That's like, I think, a way of looking down upon others, which is not nice. And then you feel superior. And, just to add, Jainism is not the only religion I was lucky to follow. I was born in a Jain family, so at the age of 8, I did get exposed to the Jain monks and sages, and I spent a lot of time with them. But I went to a Hindu school where I learned Bhagavad Gita during my lunch break, Vishnu Sahasranamam, Aditya Hridayam by heart, because my Sanskrit teacher said, if you look at the sun god and chant Aditya Hridayam 9 times, your wishes will come true. So every morning was a madness. I used to be on the terrace staring at the sun god, literally threatening him to grant my wishes, staring through the sun like that. So then I had the opportunity of, practicing the Aryan faith where you pray to the sun elements. We also did prayers from the Quran every Friday. And that's when I think my brother got into trouble because he put kumkum on his forehead and rolled up his sleeves and went into the assembly looking like a gunda instead of looking like a student, and he got thrown out after that. So we had the luxury of experimenting with many religions. And then my dad sent me to a convent. And what he didn't realize is I started reading the Bible. And he got the shock of his life. He's like, they've converted my daughter. So 2 years I got exposure to Christianity. And when I started traveling, I became very curious about Buddhism. I would literally go to crossword library, sit there in the corner and finish reading all the Buddhist books, the comic versions. Without buying it, I would just finish it off right there. And I'm like, okay, what can I buy now that I've finished reading this? I was very curious about Buddhism, and I did get to see some of the most beautiful temples in Bhutan, Ladakh, Leh. And then Ayurveda happened, and I started reading the same text that was already in Jainism. And that's when I realized all of it is actually the same one-pot meal, the khichdi that we should be eating. It has a protein, it has a carb, it has the fiber, it has the vegetables and the good fat and the spices. It's that one-pot meal. The day we shed that difference, that I'm different from you, you're different from me, our ahankar sheds, we dissolve back into the universe. That is the ultimate goal, like to dissolve back into the universe, carrying no possessions or emotions, but that eternal peace. That would be the final goal.
Eternal peace is what we all are trying for. But very well put. Thank you, ma'am, for having, gracing us with your presence. We are truly honored that, you came for the event.